Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching. The channel's called Ratchet. My name's Andrew, and on this episode, we have an absolutely massive progress update. Run the title. Welcome to the channel if you're new. If you're not, thank you for tuning back in for yet another episode. This one is an absolute bumper. I've been busting my backside for the last couple of weeks, just getting loads of little jobs ticked off of the list. I've got the spider fitted, the main coolant pipes run and fitted into place for the last time, got the radiator installed, got the front floor fitted, riveted and bonded into place. That has then allowed me to fit the fire extinguisher system. Got a windscreen installed. I've got the door hinges refurbished, ready for the doors to start being offered back into position. I've refurbished the steering rack. I have done a ton of stuff, so I'm really excited to share all of this progress with you guys. So I think less talking, more showing. As you can see, there has been a whole load of progress being made. I suppose the best thing to do is start with the spider and the fact that it is now mounted. Thankfully, it was relatively straightforward. There was a small amount of filing needed to the lower outer corners of the inner and outer bulkhead panels. You can see where the masking tape was to protect the rest of the panelling. Once those were filed back slightly, the legs just slipped in nicely underneath with the brackets that I'd made, or the spaces that I'd made necessary to get the sills slide underneath there. And then it lined up as it should do perfectly with the rear mounts that I'd made. And then coming down to the front, you'll see I've got the stainless steel hardware running around the front leading edge of the spider. Now, underneath this spider, I did put down some 2mm thick neoprene foam to try and create some sort of seal, whether it watertight or airtight. What I may do, but I'm not going to rush into doing, is I may put a very, very, very fine bead of sealant along the very front edge to try and get it completely watertight. But like I say, I'm not going to rush into that. The next thing to move on to is the windscreen that I've got installed. Now, I ended up biting the bullet and buying a new screen for a couple of reasons. The first one being, at the very start of this project, when I was cutting out the old floor, I was a silly fool and I didn't protect the inside of the windscreen. And in a few places, I pitted the inside of the screen with the sparks from the angle grinder. Now, it's such a schoolboy error, but such is life. The second reason is the previous builder had bonded the rear view mirror bracket to the back side of the screen. Now, rather than trying to remove that, because I'm going to be running a more period correct rear view mirror that mounts to the underside of the spider. So rather than trying to remove the old bracket from the glass, I thought, kill two birds with one stone. I'm in this deep, buy a new screen, have it fitted, and it's done, and it will look exactly how I want it to look. A few of the eagle-eyed amongst you may have already noticed that I don't have the windscreen surround trim fitted. Now, this was a purposeful decision. I didn't want it fitted because it's quite a wide trim, and when it's installed, it covers most of the A-pillar. And with the A-pillar being so thin already, covering half of it with the window trim surround, it just made it look a bit odd in my eyes. I wanted to see more paint down the side of the windscreen. So this has been bonded in without the trim. The fitters that did it for me, I'll put the link to them in the description below. If you live in the Midlands in the UK, give these guys a call because they did an absolutely superb job. They managed to bond in the screen, doing a really, really tidy job of not having any of the sealant squeeze out the backside, so I don't have to backfill this recess and it can stay exactly as you see it. It's such a small detail, but I think it makes such a massive difference. It just adds to that feel, for me, of the real sort of stripped back, retro, period correct race car that, you know, I'm sort of going for in terms of feel and style. So let's jump down to the front end because there has been a ton of work gone on here. It's pretty much done and buttoned up. So first things first, I have got the new floor fitted. So the front third of the car was the final panel that I wanted to fit. I didn't want to rush into fitting it because it gave me much better access to lots of other bits and pieces. So this was one of the last things to go on. The visible portion of it in the front end has been prepared, Scotch-Brite and protected with Nyalic. I have got the front lower cover panels installed. If you can see under the pipes, I have made a very small additional piece which steps out, so that then runs through flush with the main cover panel, so you don't see any of the chassis below the coolant pipes. The actual pipes themselves, again, have been prepped and Scotch-Brite and protected with the Nyalic because I want to keep this raw copper look, and it's a look that goes through to the rear brake lines, and we'll get onto those in a little while. The steering rack has been refurbished. Now, unfortunately, I can't put anything back onto the car as it came off because it's just not to the standard that I'm hitting with everything else. So it's had new boots. I've taken off the ball joints. I've wire brushed those up. So they're in a raw steel finish, and those have been protected with the Nyalic as well. So everything within this small little crevice is now complete. I've got the horn in there, all of the brake lines are run, everything's still serviceable. I can still get to everything. It's just been well packaged behind this lower bulkhead. The fire suppression system has been installed and mounted. The radiator has been cleaned up. Again, it was looking a bit of a sorry state. It's a universal radiator, which I don't mind. It works perfectly, but there were some additional brackets on there that weren't necessary. So I actually cut those off. So all I have now are the brackets that are needed to hold the twin cooling fans on, and gave it a clean up, and again, protected with a Nyalic to hopefully retain this raw aluminium finish that it has. All of the cabling has been clipped into place and hidden as much as possible. And this is how the front end will look. There is nothing else going in the front end of this car. And I think it looks brilliant. It looks so bare. And with the paneling and the finish that I've got on that, I really couldn't be happier. Let's jump down to the back of the car now, because a few small critical jobs have been done. I've been putting them off because I've not been in the mood to do them because I know they were fiddly, but they had to get done at some point. So I manned up and got them done. And they are running the brake and clutch lines, first of all. So these have been polished up and sprayed with Nyalic because I want to keep the raw copper finish like I have done with the coolant pipes in the front of the car. So these are all bespoke new lines that I made, gosh, 25 videos ago, because I have completely changed the routing of all of the brake and clutch lines throughout the entire car to sort of suit my needs and wants. I've got the coolant pipes finished up as well. I've got the swage olives fitted. These have been cut to an uneven length on purpose, and that will become apparent when I start making the final pipes to link to the engine when the engine goes in. Also, what I've done is added another couple of grommet points for the cables to pass through. One at the front there for the alternator and some bits and pieces on the front of the engine. One midway down for the starter motor. And a few other little points where the loom needs to pass through and around to pick up other ancillary items. So yeah, not really much to show, but a huge step forwards in terms of, you know, what's necessary to progress this car. As I mentioned with the steering rack, unfortunately nothing can be fitted back onto this car without either being refurbished or replaced, cleaned, or some form of tidying, because it's just not to the same standard as the rest of the car. I deeply wished that I had bought a kit to build myself from scratch, or I'd bought a better car. You know, I'm spending so much time making good poor previous work. It's draining at times, it really is. And it's things like these door hinges that just chew up a day or two, just getting them stripped, prepped, primed and painted in readiness to be fitted back. If I was dealing with new parts, just take them out of the bubble wrap, stick them on the car, life would be so much quicker and simpler. It is what it is, I get it, but it just gets me down sometimes, it really does. So that's enough of wallowing in self-pity. I got myself into it, I need to get myself out of it. I just want to share with you guys the highs and lows of rebuilding someone else's project car. So I think that sort of moves us into what I want to get onto next, and I think it's about time to start offering the doors into the holes. Now I've got those door hinges refurbished. I'm hoping the body hasn't twisted too much or moved around too much since it was removed from the chassis, but there's only one way to find out. The next video, because we're going to be talking doors and fitting, etc., I will jump into the paint and the journey, the epic journey that has been getting this thing sprayed green. Now, unfortunately, I'm not out the woods. There are problems with the paint. It's looking like it's because of the previous paint job, and this is another contributing factor to this slight skew on my mood and the slight pessimism that I'm facing with this build at the moment, but I'll share it with you guys because it's all part of the journey. So you can follow me, Ratchet GT40 on Instagram. Please leave me a comment below. Really do like chatting to you guys, you following along, seeing what you have to think about the build. It's sort of spurring me on during these darker times. But anyway, up until the next one, I will catch you next time.